So I'm here with my friend Gary Simpson, who I know very well actually, and we've done a lot of different personal development type work together. And the reason I've got Gary on Can to Can is he's already actually got an audio interview, but I wanted to get this interview on video. And the reason I'm introducing you to him and to put his story here is because of Gary's background. He'll be talking about that, but he did come from a shall we say, a challenging background. And this Can to Can story is really about how one man kind of took his life and from various levels of very challenging situations has virtually transformed his whole life. And he's inspirational to me, and I wanted to share his inspirational journey with other people so we can all learn from what Gary's done. So Gary, I'm just going to get into the questions. And what would you say was the main issue you've dealt with?
I now know it as childhood trauma or developmental trauma.
Right. So what does that mean?
Basically means that I grew up I now know in a home with family violence and domestic violence.
Right.
I also know that I didn't have secure attachment.
Okay.
And I didn't know what that was for probably 50 years.
Yeah.
But it left an imprint on me that basically the messages I got, well, I'm not safe, particularly internally.
Right.
Other people are definitely not safe.
Right.
And the world in general is not a safe place.
Okay. Is that because of the violence? And
Yeah, and the uncertainty, the anxiety. I now know I inherited my mother's anxiety. She was a very anxious woman.
Right.
And I inherited my father's probably propensity for depression.
Okay.
And a little bit of obsessive compulsiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's not making them wrong.
No.
I understand a lot more than I did for many years. So that message when I went out, I took that out into my adult life and my adult relationships. So most of the relationships I formed were not safe relationships.
When you say not safe, what does that mean?
Well, things could happen at any time.
Well, you mean you weren't safe with them, or they weren't safe?
Both.
Both.
I could be highly reactive.
Right.
Most of the women I chose were either highly depressed or reactive, or both.
Okay.
So it could turn from tranquility to volatility almost in a nanosecond.
Right.
And that would create stress, anxiety, and a propensity for violence within those relationships.
Yeah. So it wasn't like happy families, even though it was a long way.
And that wasn't from lack of love.
Right. No, that's a good point.
Because I've learned that love is not enough by itself.
Yeah.
I need a lot of skills, interpersonal skills, also self-regulation skills, so I can stay calm, present, and available, and not either reactive and volatile or withdrawn and sulking. Those things do not build safe relationships.
Right.
Those skills don't.
No.
They build very unsafe relationships.
Yeah. So would you say that then you more or less just took your family of origin type stuff, if you like, we call it, might be for want of a better word, baggage, and just transposed it into your future relationships?
Definitely. 100%.
Yeah.
Plus my own adaptations. My own creative survival behaviours.
Yeah, sure.
Were in there as well. That I'd learned.
Yeah.
As a teenager, particularly, and as a young adult.
Yeah.
What I needed to do to survive.
Yeah. And so, what kinds of behaviour then did you find really you knew probably weren't working for you, and that you knew were a problem? I mean, specifically, just so people can understand.
Withdrawing and shutting down.
Okay, so withdrawing, shutting down.
And becoming reactive and controlling.
Okay. So like almost two extremes.
Yes.
Well, like kind of both ways of getting my own way.
Polarity.
Polarity, yeah.
That's language nowadays.
Yeah, that's right, that's true, yes.
The polarity dance, not the pole dance.
Okay, the polarity dance, not the pole. So if you didn't get your own way, you'd withdraw and almost, sulk and not communicate, and that's a way of communicating.
Passive-aggressive.
Passive-aggressive, yeah.
Or I'd get aggressive.
Or you'd get act out.
Yeah, I'd act out.
Yeah.
I'd put my fist through a wall.
Yeah.
Slam the door.
Yeah.
Slam my table on top of the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, demand
and you're
and demand. Yeah, as a young man, I went from virtually a boy to a man in a space of about 6-9 months. I got to be 6'2", 90 odd kilos, and I also played a lot of sports, so I was pretty cut and fit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was.
So you're a big, strong guy.
Yeah, big, strong guy
with a fair bit of attitude.
A big FU is what I had, man. There's a classic scene in that Marlon Brando movie way back, 50s movie, and the bike is right into town. And I think it was Lee Marvin, and one of the townsfolk said, "Well, what are you rebelling against?" And he said, "Well, what do you got?" That was me. What do you got?
Because I'm going to fight it.
I'm fighting it. My survival behaviour was to primarily fight.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so, and then if that didn't work, I would then shut down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we had a question here. It says here, what did you grow up believing about yourself?
Well, I said earlier that I'm not a safe person.
Right. Well, you weren't then.
No, and also because I now know that the trauma I experienced as an infant had affected my development. So when I went to school, I now know I'm dyslexic.
Right.
And that's often a process of childhood trauma. I mean, other things contribute to it, of course. So I found difficulty with literacy, numeracy, spatial intelligence, and some of my body movements and coordination. And at school, we didn't have those fancy terms. I was just called stupid.
Yeah.
And so, for me, I just started to get aggressive.
Right.
And then get out of my classroom was the standard line I'd receive.
So
go and sit outside the principal's office.
Right. So you're like shamed.
Yeah. I was often put in the dunce's corner with the dunce's hat on.
Oh, really?
I go back that far with my primary school.
I mean, wow.
And the other one was they used corporal punishment. So I can remember being beaten virtually every day of my primary school.
God. It was back in those days.
Back in the day. So not only did I experience violence in my home, but I also experienced violence in my education.
Yeah.
So spare the rod, spoil the child was very much the theme, I think. Particularly now, I would have been diagnosed with ADHD, ODD, oppositional defiance disorder. So all the things, that's what I would have, if those terminologies would have been around me.
If they had any understanding of this behaviour, they would have at least been able to do, or at least have a label.
I would have been heavily medicated.
Yeah.
just so someone could get some peace. My mother sent me to school early. I was a year younger than it because I just drove her crazy. Yeah. I was highly active and reactive.
Right. So I can imagine you were almost like a bit of a hand grenade at home.
Yeah.
All right. So
I challenged my mum particularly.
Yeah. But of course, you have no awareness of that when you're that age. You're just doing the best you can, as is mum, as is everybody.
As is everybody. Look, and this is what I know. I grew up in a home where both parents were traumatised. My father, they grew up in 2 world wars and a depression. Yeah. And both my parents came from very violent families. Yeah. So I now understand the term intergenerational transmission of trauma. So I've done a lot of work on myself and done a lot of detective work on my parents' lives because they never told me stuff about their own child. They didn't want to. They didn't want to forget it, which I can fully understand.
Not a lot of love in the family.
Well, I got mixed up.
Yeah.
It was crazy love.
Yeah, right.
So now in a lot of my training, I would say that it's called disorganised attachment, where the source of nurturing and love is also the source of terror. Right. And that's impossible for an infant to hold in their psyche. So the psyche actually fragments. And that's that schism. Yeah. Because I can't hold the fact that my nurturers and carers are also sources of terror. Yeah. And that's true in my family. Not making them wrong, of course. But that was true because my dad he could be very violent. Yeah. And my mum could also be very violent. Right. Because that was the other thing. It was like they both could lash out and in their reactivity. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so that was love. And I know, there was also deep tenderness at different times too, so it was totally confusing.
And then it was compounded because home was like that, and then you were at school, you were like, you were put in the dunce's corner, you were shamed at school, you as you said, they labelled you stupid.
Yep.
That's not a great start in life.
And I can remember probably grade 2 maybe, a parent-teacher interview.
Yeah.
And it was just my mum. And, it was like we didn't have ears, so they'd put the kids just over there while mum...
Yeah.
And, my second grade teacher said, well, Mrs. Simpson, you've got to realise that he'll never be an Einstein.
He'll never be an Einstein, yeah.
And I was sitting there.
Yeah.
I didn't know what Einstein was, but
yeah.
I know the tone.
Yeah, So if there were 3 things you could say you grew up believing about yourself,
yep.
What would they be?
I'm stupid.
Yep.
I have a temper.
Yep.
And I probably wouldn't amount to too much.
Probably wouldn't amount to too much.
I may end up in jail.
You may end up in jail.
Yeah. If I didn't learn to control my temper.
Right. Okay. Let's go to this one. What was your lowest point in terms of all of this? Yep. Because I know things changed for you over time, yes. And I know you've obviously talked about some of the things you've now learned, so you've been through a big learning. What was your lowest point in terms of when you knew things really needed to change for you?
I was 42.
42? Quite much later in life.
Oh, yeah. End of my first marriage.
Your first marriage had just ended.
And
how long were you married?
13 years.
Oh, so quite some time. So you've been going through all of this.
Had 2 children.
2 children.
Yeah. And I knew something wasn't right. I was feeling really. So I went to the doctors, went to my GP, and he asked me some questions, and he said, "You're depressed." And the first thing I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "Gary, you're depressed. You've probably been depressed for quite a while. I'm really concerned for your mental health right now. And if we don't do something that's going to impact your physical health, because I was highly stressed," he said, "your blood pressure is off the Richter scale. So I need to put you on medication now." And something inside of me just said, "Look, I want to try something else first. If it doesn't work, maybe I'll go on the meds." He said, "Well, whatever it is, it's going to have to be something right now, today."
Is that because of the blood pressure?
Well, also he was very concerned with the depression.
Right, okay.
And like I said, doesn't everyone feel like, just you crossed your bear in life?
Yeah.
He said, "No.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be like that."
It's not meant to be like that. I've just got to stop and start this thing.
And he also gave me some phone numbers of some telephone services that may have been helpful.
Oh, some kind of support service?
Yeah, some support service.
Yeah.
And he made an appointment in 2 weeks' time. So. And I just walked out the doctor's chair and just literally ignored all that.
That wasn't what you wanted to hear?
Not really.
No.
But probably a week later, I just hit a really, really, really dark spot. And I'd had some suicidal thoughts before, but I actually started developing a plan.
So just tell me now that when you say your marriage ended, so were you living in the same house? Had she gone or had you gone?
We'd split. So
you'd split.
Living in different places.
So you had no family around. You were on your own somewhere.
Initially, yeah.
Yeah. So you'd be going. Were you working?
No. I couldn't work. I could hardly get out of bed.
Really? Really?
I just would curl up in the fetal position.
Wow. So that really is depression.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep.
And then my ex-wife, still wife at the time, rang me and said, "I'm not coping with the 2 children. It's not working. You're going to need to take Kane, who was my son. He's driving me crazy." And that's what my mum used to say about me.
Yeah.
So that reality came in. It was like, oh my God.
you can barely survive yourself.
Yeah, how the friggin' hell am I going to do this, you know?
Wow.
I can't even get myself together here.
Yeah.
And like I said, I started making a plan to kill myself.
Oh, I see. Kill yourself.
Yeah. Before I'd had some suicidal thoughts, you know, the world would be better off without me.
Yeah.
I'm just a dumbass fuckwit,
Yeah.
and I'll never amount to anything. And what that primary teacher said, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Can't even do anything. Can't keep a marriage together. Can't hold down a job.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't get out of bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. And so I went and found the piece of paper that the doctor had written his phone numbers on. And I saw one and I rang it.
You saw one of the phone numbers?
Yeah, and I didn't think. I just instinctually picked up the phone and dialed the number.
Yeah.
And I spent nearly 3 hours talking on that phone to a total stranger.
What was the phone about? What was the service?
I didn't even know.
Really?
No. The doctors just said that could be useful numbers, ring them.
Oh, you didn't even know where you were ringing?
No.
Wow.
But that was, I now know I hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And the only way out was to actually ask for help.
Right.
And that's the first time in my life I ever asked for help.
Yeah.
Or said that I wasn't coping.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't know how not to, or what to do. And I was terrified.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this video might be understand exactly where that place is, and they might even be in it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you made a call. Somebody got you a number. You made a call, and then you were saying for 3 hours.
Yeah. I poured out my life story, and this man just listened to me. Didn't try to tell me what to do or fix me up, or just made a couple of inquiring questions, and yeah, it was just, I felt something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can, that's a rare thing for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I was surprised how light I felt at the end of that 3 hours. It was like, whoa, this weight had left. Yeah.
Cool.
And he recommended to go to a men's group that was close to where I was living.
Okay. To go to a men's group.
Yeah,
so,
a men's group. Was in sort of like this recovery centre.
Okay. Yeah.
Run by nuns.
Run by nuns.
Ex-nuns.
Ex-nuns.
Yeah. And he personally recommended it.
Yeah.
And because I felt so safe with him, I thought, yeah, I'll give that a shot. Because I didn't know it. I didn't know everything else had not worked.
Right.
So I needed to do something very different. And that's
Yeah.
what my doctor said. Whatever you do, you've got to do something really different than what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Or
What you've
I'm
been
gonna-
doing after 42 years has just got you to this point.
Yeah.
And that's not really getting
Almost
anywhere.
permanently checking out.
Right. Yeah.
So that was, or it was going to be either this or taking medication.
Yeah. And as you may have even known that medication really just deals with the symptoms anyway. It
Exactly,
doesn't.
yeah.
It's maybe useful.
Sure. Well, I didn't quite go down that road.
No. Okay.
Because I went down this other road.
So he mentioned men's group.
He did.
What the hell's a men's group?
I said the same thing.
Yeah.
I said, what the hell is the men's group?
Yeah.
And he didn't go into a lot of detail.
Yeah.
But he did say, look, just give it a try. You can try it if you don't like it. You don't have to keep going.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. Because I had an escape hatch somewhere. If I don't like it, I don't have to go.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
I could do that.
Yeah.
And, as you know, it wasn't far from where I was living. That was the other attractive part. Okay. And the first night I actually went, and then my son had moved in to live with me too.
Right. Yeah.
And that was another motivator, because I knew that I wasn't the father I needed to be, or the parent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How old was he at the time?
He was 5.
5. Yeah. So you go along to this men's group.
Yeah. I go along the first night. My ex-wife agreed to look after him for the night, so I had the space. And as I got closer, my heart started to race. I started to sweat. Started to feel nauseous. And I started to cry.
Wow.
And I got to the front door literally my hand to the knob, and I couldn't go in. I was a dribbling, shaking
Wow.
mess.
Wow.
And I went home. And I did go back 2 weeks later.
You went back 2 weeks
And
later.
I managed to get into the front door, through the front door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went to this men's group.
I
Second time you went through the door.
Yep. And there were a bunch of guys in there who just welcomed me in,
Yeah.
offered me a cup of tea or coffee, and sitting around sort of like a lounge room type environment.
Yeah.
That seemed pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just talking generally, and everyone seemed friendly.
Yeah.
And then I think it might have been the facilitator or someone who said, "Okay, we're going into the other room now."
Oh, that wasn't even the men's group.
Well, it was. These were the guys.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so this was just a bit of a chat before.
Yeah, warm up.
And it was like, "What do you mean we're going into another room?" And one of the other men came over and said, "Hi, I'm sorry. Hi, Gary. Go. You want to come with me?"
Yeah.
Probably. What are we doing? And so they went into this room that was like beanbags all around the walls.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell?
Oh,
Ooh.
I've seen this in movies.
Yeah, I've seen this in movies.
Yeah.
Where's the camera?
Yeah.
And they all, sat down, invited me to sit down. So, I'm the sort of person, I wasn't going to back out.
Right.
But, something in me said, just try it out. So, and then the man who said, "You come into," he said, "Okay, we're going to start with a check-in." So how is everyone tonight? How do you feel? And he also said, "And you don't need to share."
Right.
Let's take 77.
Just step through the resistance.
Embrace the change.
Embrace the change. So we are back here because, as you know, we started outside, and we've actually had to do some reshooting inside because when you're making cart-to-can videos, I never recommend shooting outside, and I've actually I did it anyway.
Not following your own advice.
I was not following my own advice, exactly. Well, it was calm when we started, as it often is when you're shooting outside, but these interviews do take a while. The sun came around, boats started tearing up this river, and what Gary was saying was...
It's a bit of like an analogy for life, isn't it?
It can. That's right. It started off calm, and then,
When
the beauty is we can go back and redo this. So we've been looking at the video, and we're now in Gary and Robyn's home, and we can pick up much of these important things that Gary was saying, and that's what this is about. So that's why we're back here, and you might see us chopping between outside and inside, and that's just the way it is. The main thing is to get the information.
creative license.
Creative license, exactly. So, Gary, at the point that we've switched back to inside here, you were about to go into the men's group. You talked about the first time when you went, and you had a whole reaction to going into the group. And the second time, you actually got into the door, and you were saying that you were in the meeting and greeting phase, having coffee.
Yeah.
And then they...
Coffee and Scotch finger biscuits.
And Scotch finger biscuits. Wow.
Look at that.
Thanks for that level of detail. That's But then there's this other room.
There was the other room.
The other room.
And the invitation was to go in there.
And there was that became interesting.
Yes, my fear level really rose.
Right. Yes.
I was rather anxious. I noticed.
And so this is because you were scared to go. What was all the fear about?
What I realised now was that I was afraid to discover who I really was. I also I feel I instinctively knew that I would need to go through some level of my trauma
Yeah.
to release it.
Yeah.
And, I'm a deep pain-avoiding creature. Pleasure seeking.
Well, you must be the only
Probably the
person.
only Freud quotes I ever used.
Yeah.
Deeply a pleasure-seeking and pain-avoiding being.
Right, right. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that, but I know I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if I've got to do, if I think anything remotely like
I mean,
purging.
I'd rather,
Yeah.
be injured physically than have to do this emotional revisiting. Well, yeah.
Well,
I
for
think
some
it's
people
crap,
it is crap.
Well, it
you
is
know,
crap.
I
Well,
don't
yeah,
want to,
that's the story.
Yeah.
It's just emotional crap and baggage. Get over it.
Yeah.
Build a bridge. Go to Bunnings.
Yeah.
Harden the F up.
Yeah.
Suck it up, princess. What it,
Yeah,
it's
all those.
all those things.
Yeah.
And it actually doesn't work. All it does is actually harden my heart.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be. I wish that I tried all that for 42 years and
Yeah.
I hit rock bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the second room.
The second room. That's where the action happened.
That's where the action happened. So you got into the second room.
Yep.
I think before you said that somebody actually
Yeah, the
kind of invited you.
the gentleman who seemed to be someone who knew what they were doing invited the men into the other room,
Yeah.
and I was part of that.
Okay. So
Did you really include me in that? I've had my tea and my Scotch finger. I think I might go home. But I
they
can't.
might have picked that up.
I think they did.
Yeah.
I think looking back now, they're all fairly attuned to body signals and body language.
And of course, they've all been there before themselves.
Yes, I heard wonderful stories of men on their first night.
Yeah. So this is your journey into the second room, and then what happened?
Well, I went in and it was sort of a little bit lower lighting.
Yeah.
With standing lamps.
Yeah.
And there were these bean bags all around the walls.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I thought, where are the mirrors? And, but the men I just sat straight down, and one of the men invited me to sit next to him.
They didn't seem like aliens or fruit.
No, they
loops,
didn't. That was my thing. It was like, no one here is chanting, nobody's holding hands. There wasn't even any hugging.
Oh.
But I would have gone definitely home if it had been home.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No way am I doing that.
It's okay.
Whatever it is, I'm not doing it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So that was and I just remembered the man on the phone saying, if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. You don't have to go back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Choice.
It's a choice. Yeah. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
I sat in the beanbag. Hadn't sat in the beanbag since the 70s, man. Wow.
Flashbacks.
Flashbacks, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then now he was the facilitator for that night, and said, now we're going to do a check-in. And that involves, how's your week been? How's it going for you, and how are you feeling? But he said, we do have a new man tonight, so I'm just going to invite Gary to share a little bit of his background with us. And he says, just your name, your age, where you're living, relationships, kids, and what brings you here, sort of thing.
Sounds simple.
Sounds very simple. And then he said also, before we start, just because we do have a new man tonight, we're just going to revisit our guidelines.
Okay.
So he talked about confidentiality. And I got that because I've been doing therapy, other group programs, so I could even contribute a little bit to that.
Yeah.
Respect, so respect of myself, respect the other men, respect the space. One man talking at a time. So in other words, listen, which is still pretty foreign to me at the time. And I love this one. I love the most. I have a right to pass. So I didn't have to contribute. I didn't have to participate. I could sit and just stay and observe. And that made it a lot safer for me to be there. So then after that, then I just said who I was, my age, what I'm doing. And I said, I'm here because I really don't know how to be a man, how to be a father. Sort of, and maybe you guys might have some idea. Maybe. And then after that, he said, okay, I'll ask the other men to check in. So I just listened in awe. These men shared how they were during the week and what was happening in their lives, how they were with their partners if they had them, or their kids if they had them. But the most amazing thing was they shared how they were feeling.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like for me, my only feeling I probably was allowed to express was angry.
Yeah.
Really pissed off. Frustrated.
Yeah.
So they shared lots of others.
Okay.
And then it came to me and I passed.
Right.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was freaking out.
Yeah.
And a big part, another part of me said, get the F out of here. Now. And so, but my legs were immobilised. I got a bit of jelly. So I was stuck in that beanbag. I think it had suction in it. Especially designed beanbag so you couldn't leave the group.
Just for G. Simpson.
Well, maybe for every other one.
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
but for that particular
like
time...
I sort of had just a physical inertia almost.
Wow, I can really... I'm sure many people can relate to the idea of being somewhere where you know it's good for you to do it and you also want to get the hell out.
Yeah. So, and I did... There was one of the men read some poetry at the end of that night.
Oh, wow.
And at first I thought, whoa, but he had really, look, seriously, he had a deeper and more resonant voice than you have.
I didn't think that was possible.
No, I didn't think either, but apparently this man was just the deepest, sweetest, it was voiced like honey.
Wow.
And he just had this book called The Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart.
Oh, wow.
That's a book I recommend. Beautiful poetry.
Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart.
Yeah, you can get it.
Yep.
It's quite a bit, it's prose and poetry. And, and he read it, I think it was a Rumi poem.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, I love, because I love poetry in my teenage.
Yeah, well, you're a songwriter.
Yeah, and a songwriter, and I write poetry.
Yeah.
So, that was, they called it The Well. I went, what do you mean The Well?
Oh, the name of the poem?
No, what they did at the end of the night.
Oh, okay, what a nice thing.
And he said, well, we all drink from the well. We all take nurturance, something from the well. And we take turns, each man brings a piece to put into the well. And,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was nice. I like that.
Yeah.
So that was a nice way to finish. And the Rumi poem, I think it was the one that all is welcome in the temple.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's just everyone's invited. No one's ever turned away.
Oh, yeah.
That style. Yeah.
So no matter what your background, what you've done, or what you think you've done,
you're
welcome here.
Yeah, always welcome here.
Okay.
And bring it. We don't exclude anybody.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that finished and I went home and I got sort of a hit saying I'd like to keep doing that. So I started going back regularly.
Okay. Yeah.
And
what was regularly? I mean, how often was it?
Well, it met once a week.
Oh, okay. So very regularly. Actually.
Very regularly.
Yeah.
And that there was probably maybe 15 men that was part of that, but not all were there every night.
Sure.
Some nights there were 5, sometimes there were 12. And, but I made it a commitment to go, to give it 6 months and see what would happen.
Yeah.
And the other thing, because it was part of a healing, like a recovery centre called Bethel, there are other things on offer. So one of the things was a codependent group, a 12-step group called CODA, Codependence Anonymous.
Yeah.
And I talked to one of the coordinators of that, and just what she said, again, I did some little bit of 12-step work when I did my giving up drugs, getting off the gunge and stuff like that. So I had some idea what 12-step work was about. So again, I did a little bit of that and got a lot from it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Because for me, in
but what is this coded? What is
for me,
what is that?
Because of
I mean, people won't know.
No, they don't. And the reality is, in my life, if someone showed any interest or even a nano piece of liking me,
Yeah.
I would just cling in.
Oh my God, that's so appealing.
Yeah, so
You would
can I
latch.
just hang here for a while?
Whoa. Oh, that really feels good.
Yeah. But for people who are also codependent, who was it, people that
Who want to do that as well.
yeah, they, so it was, and then I learnt the term enmeshment,
Yeah, well, that's right.
where there's the boundaries blur, and where I begin and end, I don't know where that is, and it sort of blends into the other person, and you're the missing part of me
Oh, yeah, right.
that will make me whole.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah,
That's a myth
yeah.
from what I learned,
Yeah, that's right.
and also applied in my life.
Yeah.
So I need to learn to do this, is what they taught us.
Yeah.
Are coming together, but are not the enmeshment part.
Not the
So you try this. Everyone that could try it at home. So
sure.
putting your hands together,
Yeah.
bringing your fingers around. Now try to pull those hands apart.
Yeah, it's
quite hard.
It is quite hard.
And if you manage to do it, it's that.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do this. Make full contact.
Oh, right.
Really come in.
Yeah.
Feel each other. Feel the palms
Yeah.
and your fingers.
Yeah,
Connecting. Touching.
true. It's quite different, isn't it?
And
Feels
then
quite
just
different.
take them apart, because sometimes I need to go and do something by myself.
Yeah.
Very gentle, very easy.
Yeah, true.
Pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
So that's the sort of relationship when I'm not codependent that's possible.
Yeah.
When I'm not attracted to and attracting in other codependent people.
So an attraction is kind of a love based on a huge need. It's not like I need you.
It's in my OCD terminology,
Yeah.
it's a compulsion.
I must have you.
I'm compelled and obsessed about you. As well.
Right.
And that's the enmeshment.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
again, as an addict and codependent,
Yeah.
the emotional addict,
Yeah.
I need you, I'm obsessed by you, I must, and you're never going to leave me.
Yeah,
Ever,
and of course
ever,
this goes
ever.
back to your childhood because nothing was stable there. So
Yeah.
if you try and find a
Well,
relationship,
that's why I might be out of control.
yeah.
And if I tell you you're the missing part of me,
Yeah.
and you make me whole,
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you find somebody else who's equally unwhole.
and I make them whole.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
It sounds like it would work.
it does for a while.
It does for a while.
Sweet as.
But then what happens?
Well, when I need space,
Yeah.
or they need space, this happens.
Oh, okay.
It's, whoa,
Yeah.
there's a lot of force needed to do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's not healthy.
Yeah.
People get hurt and damaged.
Yeah.
So again, what I learned in COVID.
And would you like in the old days, if things didn't go your way or something like that, because you said you were dealing with anger and
Yep.
what have you, and I remember you saying you'd bash things. So if things didn't go your way, how did this kind of situation, the enmeshment type of thing, how did that play out before you got help?
Well, that was from there. It's like an impasse there now. Because what I learned in COVID was that hurt people,
Yeah.
damage people, abuse people.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit cliched, but it's quite true in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Because that's the patterning I have. That's my imprinting.
Yeah.
So it becomes that that cycle. And because I've done a lot of working with trained to work with men who use violence and their relationships. There's this whole idea of this is where the sense of power and control and from fear.
From fear.
It's a controlling thing from a place of fear.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I may never ever reconnect.
Right.
And I'm going to die because you're the missing part of me. You make me whole.
Right.
Therefore, when I'm not,
Right.
I'm less than whole.
Or I can't deliver what you
Sure,
think
never
I
can.
need. Yeah, I never can. That's true. Of course.
And I never can deliver for you.
Yeah, I can't do it for you.
Because
So I'm-
ultimately, that's when the honeymoon ends.
yeah.
And the honeymoon can last from 1 second, 1 minute, 1 day, a week, a year, or a bit longer. But it will end.
Yeah. It has to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's unsustainable, that level of obsession
Yeah.
and compulsion.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good resource. That
It's a good resource.
guy. Yep.
Yeah. And look, seriously now, today, there are literally hundreds of really good, free, internet-based and phone services
Yeah.
with highly skilled, highly trained people
Yeah.
ready to support
Yeah.
me in whatever shape or form that could look
Yeah.
like.
So the fact is, it's really up to me that I have to. There's plenty of resources out there. Actually, there's the books you've recommended. There's probably all kinds of other things on the internet, as you say. But you did talk about the really significant thing for you, anyway, is connecting with people, and not trying to do it on your own. So it's one thing to read a book, and that's good. That's good. That can be a start.
That can be.
But actually connecting with someone or a group, or just doing anything to get out of the house, to break the isolation pattern, is highly effective. Probably really, you might say essential.
Essential. And, like in my work, it's talked about having a therapeutic community to do my work in. And, again, leaving the substance use, I cannot associate with people who are using
drugs.
Otherwise, I'm highly prone to fall back into old behaviours and old patterns. So I need to find a community that is on the recovery path. And yes, there's lapse and there's even relapse at times.
Sure.
However, there's a commitment that I don't. These old behaviours are not serving me anymore, and I'm putting them down.
And I want to go back.
I
want to go. I don't want to go back.
And I'm moving forward to at least being clean.
Yes.
And with clean, again, it's a well-researched pathway. But after 3 to 5 years clean, I start to gain some clarity back. And I often say to when I talk to people who are using, or I'm asked to talk to whatever, or people that I in my life that still use, and they say, well, what? How could you do that? I said, because clarity is the best drug I've ever tried. Totally free and always available. It's beautiful. Clear mind.
Right. Okay. Now, Gazza, what setbacks did you face, and how did you deal with them, if there were any?
Yeah, look, because I actually stopped creating chaos in my life.
Right.
I haven't had major setbacks. There's been, my wife now, Robyn, and myself, we've come through a major financial meltdown. We were embezzled for a large sum of money. And I know how to self-write now. I've got myself, my self-writing principle. It's like the yachts that have got dominion. Even when they capsize, I've got a self-writing mechanism. They don't delay either that way or on their side and not be functional.
Well, how does somebody get that, though?
Doing this sort of work.
Okay.
In my rock and water training, it's called finding my inner compass. So I can using my inner compass to find my true north.
So is Rock and Water a resource?
It is. That's another website you can use. So it's a program designed particularly for teenage boys that uses mindfulness-based martial art, particularly Aikido, which I train in today, Tai Chi, and how to link thinking, speaking, feeling. So it's congruent. It works together in unison.
Right. So this Rock and Water program is a good program for young guys, but it's also helped you to that if you get knocked over, if shit happens.
Well, shit happens.
I've
got a T-shirt that says that.
That's
must be true.
If shit happens, this has really helped bring things back to centre and be able to put it in perspective.
Definitely.
It's like the world isn't necessarily going to end. I can deal with this somehow.
And I now know the terminology of post-traumatic growth.
Right. Which means what in ordinary language?
Well, instead of moving down post-traumatic stress, I actually use it to expand into. Because
like I'm moving towards situation.
Moving towards,
like
because
a brightness of something.
Life is unfair at times. Things happen at times.
Yeah.
And my training is that pain is inevitable.
Right.
Suffering is optional.
True. True.
So when I am in pain, I reach out. I connect and I tell people about and share my pain.
Yeah.
With those, not from an imposing place, but from a place of empathy.
Yeah.
And people who are generally wanting to support me.
Yeah. So you can clear it and move on.
Yeah.
With whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so setting up the necessary conditions so it becomes post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
And not post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. Okay. That's
and I could talk about an analogy that explains that beautifully for people who may not understand that.
Well, go ahead. Why not?
So, in America, with the 9/11 terrorist
Yeah.
on New York,
Yeah.
the Twin Towers, they expected a massive epidemic of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
And also nationally, because it was televised so much.
Yeah.
And they didn't find that. What they found was a very low level of post-traumatic stress disorder. And the reason that they believe that is because, New Yorkers felt so supported.
Right.
They had access to the best emergency workers and best support people. They felt the whole nation, in fact the whole world, Western world particularly, got in behind them. Now the difference is with Hurricane Katrina that hit New Orleans, and it took many weeks before there was even federal aid support to support.
Right.
The level of post-traumatic stress in that community is still going up. They did not feel supported. There are still streets flooded in there.
Sure.
And neighbourhoods flooded.
And on an individual level, how do you translate that to a person?
Well,
to me,
Okay, so having a support system.
have a support system. Yeah.
People in New Orleans felt isolated and abandoned. The people in New York felt connected and supported.
But that's happened for them. They didn't do it.
No, they didn't.
They didn't do it. So here I am. I'm on my own.
I'm just
busy.
giving
It's a great example. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. So the thing is, it sounds like what I'm interpreting from what you're saying is that I need to create a support structure around me.
Yeah.
I need to create a supportive environment for myself.
Yep.
Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. All right. So, got the question here. I didn't actually ask it before, but how did you maintain your motivation in spite of the difficulties and challenges you faced?
One of the things I learnt in the men's work was a term we use, I need to show up. Just show up.
Just show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just be
And
there.
make a commitment,
Right. Right.
which I never was really good at
Yeah.
prior to it.
Right.
Recently. Relatively recent.
Yeah. So I just go to a group. If I just go to, just turn up. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Show up.
Yeah. So that's how you maintain your motivation.
So that's how I learned to get motivation.
That's how you learn to get motivation.
Yeah. It's pretty new, having motivation. And doing something I love doing is very motivating.
So what, by doing something regularly, that's how
I think so. I think because of my ability to create a lot of chaos, I
okay,
never
I
had
see.
regularity. It's
Right.
nothing's ever regular, and I never grew up with that sense of things being regular, because it could become chaotic very quickly.
So that was a new kind of learning really for you, was to maintain your motivation, was to just keep turning up on a regular basis to something,
Yeah,
and that actually helped.
yeah. And again, I didn't get caught back in inertia.
Right. Right. Or isolation for another
Yeah,
word.
well, an isolation feeds inertia.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe.
Yeah, okay, great, okay. Now, I know you've gone on and you've now recently completed a degree
Yep.
in, do you want to tell us what?
Bachelor of Counselling.
So Bachelor of Counselling,
Yep.
and you ended up, and you went from, what was it that we said before, Gary? Being stupid, never amounting to anything,
Yeah.
to kind of what age are you now? I mean, you recently
Yep, I'm 61.
and you finished it last year,
In February 2014.
February 2014.
I'm very specific about that. I remember the last word I had to type to finish off my last assignment. Woohoo!
What was the
Joy.
word? What was the word?
It was I think it was a reference quote.
Oh, okay. So it's nothing. profound.
Retrieve from a website.
Yeah.
Retrieve from, that was the last,
Okay.
whatever that was.
Well,
Because
okay.
I always did my reference list last.
So as they say in the classics, you've come a long way, baby.
Yeah.
So from being stupid and a dumb fuck at school, which was your language,
Yeah, that's my language.
what you called
Well, I
yourself.
was called that a few times.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
And
To will
word-
never
and
amount
words.
to anything.
Yeah.
All of this old script.
Yeah.
You've completely turned things around
Yeah.
to get your degree.
180.
And what helped you go through this degree thing? Because that can't have been easy.
Well, I shared before, I needed to bust the old belief system, the old monkey on my back or the demon on my shoulder, that I am a dumb F.
Yeah.
So I spent time working on that.
Yeah.
I also took up a martial art.
Okay.
Aikido.
Right. Aikido, yeah.
One is because of the rock and water training, so when I was 12, I was busted for shoplifting.
Mm-hmm.
So after going to the children's court, I needed to go to the PCYC.
Yeah.
And I picked up boxing and judo.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a real interest in that. I particularly liked the judo.
Yeah.
And I played around with a few martial arts.
Yeah.
But the rock and water training, and having worked with the originator of that program, seeing him, he was a second or third dan black belt in Aikido.
Yeah.
And the discipline he used, and I knew I wanted to do it. I wanted what he had.
Yeah, you wonder what he had, yeah.
So yeah, I picked that up at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was going to have to be the most disciplined I've been in my whole life.
Right. And that wasn't a natural place to be at.
No, not for a rebel.
No, right, no.
Hello. Yeah.
So you're joining the establishment almost, so that's a whole change.
Well, and also, I was nearly 55.
Yeah, when you started.
So I needed to surrender to being a student.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
In both the martial art discipline and in my degree.
Right.
So you knew nothing.
Did you begin them more or less at the same time?
More or less at the same time.
Right, interesting. And did one support the other?
Yeah, totally.
Really? Interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
So, what's happened with those beliefs now that being stupid, that was so strong before, the not being able to control my temper, the I'll never amount to anything? I mean, what's happened with those now?
Well, my basic, construct of myself, I'm a highly intelligent, highly adaptive, deeply resilient, and compassionately loving man. And I feel safe here in my own skin, in my own beingness.
Wow.
I know you're safe, and the vast majority of the people who's on the planet are safe.
Right.
And I actually even know that the planet, despite what the news may tell me, is quite a safe place. And I belong here.
Yeah. So that's a huge shift to how it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Quite a few years ago, but nevertheless.
I'm deeply and securely attached.
To what?
To my internal working model of safety and security.
Yeah.
And that's how I construct my life and my relationships, from my inherent sense of safety.
Okay, great. So you went from, as you said before at the very beginning, a really chaotic home life where there was no stable ground, or very little, to where you've really got this kind of almost a serenity about life.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, without putting words in your mouth, I'm just trying to clarify for people.
Yeah. Deep sense of hopefulness, not hopelessness.
Yeah, okay. So everything's like 180 degrees change.
Yeah.
Over time.
And that's why I can say, that there is no trauma that doesn't have the potential to be resolved.
There's no trauma that doesn't have the potential to be resolved. So explain that.
Whatever I've been through, particularly in childhood and early, into adolescence even, that may have been horrific, completely extreme and adverse, that there is an innate capacity to resolve that and to rewrite new beliefs and new scripts.
Right.
And I know that because I have done that. I've witnessed hundreds of people do that.
Right.
Who have even come from more extreme places than I.
Yeah. So you could pretty much say for anybody that's watching this video, anybody that feels stuck, that no matter what's happened, that you can, if they do something, if they make some positive interventions, that it's absolutely possible for them to have the changes they want in their life if they keep at it.
Definitely.
So what's that phrase again?
There is no trauma, no matter how extreme and horrific, that does not have the potential for resolution.
So family rifts,
Yeah.
all kinds of things like
Abuse,
that. Abuse,
sexual abuse,
yeah,
torture even.
Yeah.
Growing up in a war zone.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Seeing your parents killed in front of you.
Yeah.
And I've worked with people like this.
Yeah.
Having guns put in your mouth and at your head when you're 3 and 4.
Wow.
Or to your mother's head,
Oh,
saying if you don't do this, your mother's dead now.
wow. Yeah.
So
All of that.
All of that has a potential for resolution. And I can back that up with research and neuroscience and a whole lot of work now.
And the fact that you've done it with many, not just your own story, but you've also helped many
Yeah, and
in
I've
similar
also,
situations.
not even helping them, seeing, when I was journeying myself, I saw many people
Right.
resolve their trauma
Yeah.
and move to a life of love, functionality, safety, and happiness.
Yeah, great. And that's what I wanted. I'm so glad you're able to say that and share that, because it is possible for anybody.
Yeah, and I often will say, if I was able to do it,
Yeah.
I believe anyone can do it.
Yeah.
I mean that generally. I'm not being flippant.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I've
great.
resisted for as long as I possibly could.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. I was just going to say, what new personal characteristics, you've covered this a little bit, but what new personal characteristics have you learned or strengthened because of what you've been through?
I definitely believe I'm a lot more compassionate.
Oh, right.
And I'm deeply curious. And my curiosity of how that is for you or anyone else. And deeply non-judgmental.
Okay. Yeah, and you enjoy that.
I do enjoy that.
Yeah.
Because I never know anyone's backstory.
Right.
And you could present as the most functional person on the planet
Yeah.
initially, and I, there could be a massive backstory in there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
So how do you get out of bed in the morning?
Yeah.
How do you not go into a fetal position?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
So again, the curious question is, I don't need to know what's wrong with someone. Could you please tell me what happened to you?
Okay. Yeah.
Because I'm really curious about it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you've learned personal characteristics about some of those other things you mentioned: resilience, the
Post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth, connection.
Yeah.
Creating relationships. All that kind of stuff.
And to have fun.
Good. Have fun. Joy. Have some joy.
Joy. Yeah. Happiness.
How do you feel now?
I do feel happy.
Yeah. You look really happy.
I love my life. I love getting up every morning.
Yeah.
I just literally jump out of bed.
Cool.
And that's 20 years ago, I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And if I did, I'd just drop to the floor in the fetal position.
Right. Yeah.
So I acknowledge my journey from there.
Yeah. And maybe your journey can make a difference to other people's journey.
Maybe.
So hopefully, if we make a difference to one person, it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, just at the end here, what single piece of advice could you give someone facing a similar challenge when you were way back then, stuck, the world was a dark place, fearful place, dangerous place?
Yep.
What single piece of advice could you give someone who might be in a similar position right now?
Pretty sure I said it before, but
Yes, I'm pretty sure you
it's
did.
to reach out to
Reach
another,
out.
even just one more human being,
Yeah.
and let them know.
Yeah.
Show that I don't know what to do here.
Yeah. And what? Yeah. Okay. Look, it's enough said, as you say. Is there anything else you'd like to say that could possibly make a difference for somebody that's watching this video?
Probably not more than what I've said.
No? Cool. Okay, mate. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Hilton.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we've done our second run through on this, so I
Hopefully
appreciate
the sound has worked.
I hope everything's working, you know.
Yeah.
But appreciate your time. Okay.
Okay.
All right.